Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this morning's call. As you will see from my screen, my name is Sinead. I am the General Manager of Mannatech here in Australasia. And this morning, you are going to hear from our one and only Dr. Steve Nugent. Now, Dr. Nugent is Mannatech's Chief Science Officer. He has more than 40 years' experience in the area of integrative medicine. He has tested more than 6,000 dietary supplement products and formulated more than 100. He is internationally recognized as an expert in his field, and he has been teaching doctors for more than 30 years. He is, by a country mile, our most requested speaker worldwide. No offense to everybody else, but you'll see why in a second if you're new this morning. Dr. Nugent has earned multiple degrees, graduating with top honours at both the undergrad and graduate levels. His areas of study include integrative medicine, health and wellness psychology, leadership psychology, organizational psychology, neuropsychology, biological anthropology, nutrition science, and business administration. Dr. Nugent has served as the president of the International Association of Complementary Medicine and is president emeritus of the American Naturopathic Medical Association. He is also a professional member of the American College of Nutrition. Now, way back in 2007, when it was started, Dr. Nugent was awarded the Servant's Heart Award by Mannatech Associates. And this is an award really that associates nominate for really to underpin not only the work of somebody, but the heart of somebody. Dr. Nugent was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. He has served his country with honor as a U.S. Marine. He has lived for the longest time in Texas, but now he is a resident of hot and humid Florida, which I know is one of his favorite things. Good morning, Dr. Nugent. Lovely to see you this morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing very well. Thank you, Sinead. It's always so good to see you, and it's always so good to do this call and communicate with my friends in Australasia. Uh,
And you know what? I'm going to plug myself. I think I'm getting better with your bio because there's a lot of big words, and I kind of felt I nailed it that time. There wasn't one slip. Yay me.
you're you're getting to be pretty amazing with that because you're right. That's a tough one to read.
It is a tough one. When Poppy on our team was doing it, she said, "Do I have to say all these words?"
Yeah, all those ologies and stuff.
Yes, it's an ology. Okay, well, welcome this morning. Our topic is healthy aging, and it's a topic I've seen your slides, and I'm very curious, as you know, and I think it's an amazing topic. So we'll just hand it over to you this morning.
Well, good morning officially to everyone in Australasia. I hear it's pretty bright and sunny down there. And I'll tell you what, I am super looking forward to coming down there and seeing all my friends again. It's been so long. I won't spend time talking about that right now, but because we have to talk about health span versus lifespan. But I just want to tell you that I'm looking forward to seeing all of you again very soon. That's just May. That's just around the corner. Okay. Well, here's what we're going to do. You know, I always tell people what to expect in any presentation. So here's what you should expect in this presentation. We're going to talk about the population facts in Australasia. Most people don't know the population facts of their own country, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about aging, the facts about aging, most things you do not know. A lot of people think, oh, yeah, I know all about aging. I know all about that stuff. Well, maybe not. You're going to learn some new information today that I hope will be very valuable to you. And there is a huge gap between how long a person lives and how long a person stays healthy. So, how long you live, lifespan, versus how long you live healthy, which is called health span. So that's the purpose of this lecture today. And there's new science for predicting aging. Now, I have teased about this back and forth in some other calls that we've done and some other recordings that we've made. I'll give you a little more about it today and make it clear on how it sort of fits in the whole Mannatech model that is so beautiful. In fact, this new science is perfect for Mannatech. It's absolutely perfect for us. And then, of course, we will talk about the hero of Mannatech, and that's one of my favorite topics. So you know when we get there. So let's start first with the facts about the population in Australasia. You'll notice that this presentation is very focused on Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. And I have things to share about all three countries. Everybody's covered on this. All right, let's start with this. Now, this is busier than I normally make my slides, but there's so much to talk about, and I want to make sure we don't miss anything on this. Well, right now, we have more than 4 million Australians who are over the age of 65. And the fastest growing age group on planet Earth, not just in Australia, but on the whole entire planet, is people who are 65 and older. Now, the numbers in Australia are expected to get up to 6.7 million by 2057. That's not that far away. Singapore's aged society status is what it's called, super aged society. 20% of the Singaporeans are over the age of 65, and it is projected to go even higher, obviously, as the 65 plus group grows. Now, before I go too far, I want to make this clear. Aging begins when you're conceived. It begins at conception. Now, we like to say growing, right? Because humans want to be positive as much as we can. We like to be optimistic and happy. And so we talk about growing up. But the fact is, the simple fact is, when you look at what aging is, and I'm going to go through those points with you, bullet point by bullet point, we'll go through them. You'll realize that at the moment you're conceived, yes, you're beginning to grow, but you're also beginning to age. You are getting older every second. And really, healthy nutrition to have the longest possible life and the healthiest possible life so that your health span and your lifespan are the same, that really should start when you're around 20 years old. So this is not a presentation for 65 and plus. This is a presentation really for 20 and older. And you'll see that as we proceed. All right, to get back on track, sorry. In New Zealand, the 65 plus population will double within the next 25 years at the current rate. And it's pretty big right now, proportionate to the total population. And this is important. You know, as I travel around the world, I often hear people in countries that have, quote, socialized medicine, unquote, who will say to me, their healthcare is free. Folks, nothing is free. Even the air we breathe is not free. Now, you don't pay for it monetarily, but it takes a tree to create the oxygen for us to breathe. And it takes things for the tree to grow, and so on and so forth. Nothing is free. Everything has a cost. Now, in terms of healthcare, when you have socialized medicine, the cost is from taxes. It's not free. You pay taxes. From your taxes, your healthcare dollars are taken. Now, here's the problem. You can only tax your population so much. You can't tax your population 100% because they'll just quit working. Like, why would you want to keep working? So what we have to do is not just help ourselves, we need to help our governments. Governments need to have populations that are healthier. Right now, the single largest expense for the governments of Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore is healthcare for people 65 and older. That's the single biggest expense in all three of the national budgets. This tells you that by helping people to be healthier as they age, you not only help that person, you help the society you live in, and you help the government that you live in. This is a big, big picture, folks. This is a really important picture. And we can, I'm going to show you by the end of this presentation, I believe that most, if not all of you, will be convinced we can make a difference. Isn't that what we're here for? We have that purpose of life question. Why am I here? Maybe you're here to help people. Maybe you're here to help your society, your community, your country. Maybe that's why you're here. I think that's why I'm here. That's what I feel about my purpose. And this is what we can do to help everybody, regardless of age, because it's sort of a cascading event. All right, let's move forward. So we're going to talk about consumer awareness. Right now, the awareness for longevity and aging is higher than it's ever been. In fact, I looked up a statistic, or a lot of statistics really, for this presentation, and one that I found was that globally, people who are 40 and older are currently spending 420 billion, that's billion with a B, billion US dollars equivalent on healthy aging products. Think about it. $420 billion. People don't spend money unless they need it. What does that tell you about demand? What does that tell you about need? This is important, folks. And I'm going to talk to you also about something called GRT. And I have teased you a little bit about it in the past. So the glycan replenishment therapy, folks, that's how we make a difference. And that's how our hero, Amritos, makes a difference globally. I hope you're going to love this information. This is so big, so important. Now, I often talk to people who will say to me, well, I'm not sure which population group I should recruit, and maybe I should be looking at people in this age group or that group. Now, I want to tell you, every day, based on the current data, based on the current averages, every single day in Australasia, there's about 1,000 people who are celebrating their 40th birthday. The majority of people who buy dietary supplements worldwide are ages 40 and older. 1,000 people per day. I want you to think about that. That means 1,000 people per day who need our products and your help. Think about it. Now, the majority of these people are beginning to feel the effects of aging, but they're only just beginning to feel the effects. They haven't gotten everything yet. They're just starting. But the fastest growing group is age 65. And this is due to what in many countries, I know it is called in my country, baby boomers, and I'm not sure what it's called in every country, but post the Second World War, there was an enormous explosion of new births, creating the largest population group, the largest generation ever thus far in history as a group. And this group is now the second largest because some of that group on the high end of that group have passed away from old age. But the majority of the baby boomers are still alive and kicking, and they need good nutrition. They need help. These are the 65 and over. And those are the people that need our help the most. But again, and I'm going to, as we progress, you're going to see, I'm going to talk about ages 20, ages 30, that really you need to start early and move forward. All right. So to try and keep on track, I know I get off track. I get excited. I'm sorry. I get excited about this stuff because it's such important information. All right. In Singapore, I saw this statistic before I made this presentation for you because I wanted to talk about the difference between health span and lifespan. And my first group that I looked at was in Singapore. And we saw that the life expectancy in Singapore, 83.5 years. That's great. That's great. That's super. But the health expectancy is only 74. Oh, well, what does that mean? That means that after the age of 74, Singaporeans begin to have chronic health issues, and most of them begin to have multiple chronic health issues. They don't feel good anymore. They're not aging well. They're alive. Medical science is keeping them alive, but they're not well. They're not healthy. They're not enjoying those years of their life as they should. And that's the gap I'm talking about. So, health span versus lifespan. I want that gap to close. I want us to have lifespan and health span be the same number. I want the lifespan to be much higher. I personally am shooting for 147. You can pick whatever age you want. But I want the health span to be there. I'm currently living in a community in Florida that it's a 55 and older community. And most people in this community are retired. 180,000 people where I'm living right now. And it's interesting to me as I look at the people over the age of 74. Most of them are not happy and healthy. They're just hanging in there. In fact, the joke around here is that this community is called God's waiting room because they're just waiting to pass on and meet their maker. I don't like that attitude. I don't like that at all. I want people to be healthy every single day of their life, and I want them to be healthy as long as they possibly can. And you may want to join me and shoot for 147 yourself, but that's the magic number I'm looking for. Okay, so the peak of cellular health, you remember I said aging begins at the moment of conception. It literally does. And again, we like to say, well, the child is growing, but in fact, the child is aging. It goes from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, it's aging, okay? But the peak of cellular health is around age 28. Now, you'll get different studies that say age 30 and 29 and so on, but 28 is really the peak of cellular health. After that, we actually begin to decline. Now, we've been aging all along, and we've been growing at the same time, but then all of that sort of plateaus and we begin to decline. At first, the decline is subtle. It's gradual. We don't notice it. But then we begin to notice little symptoms of it in our 40s, typically, although it does happen to some people in their 30s, but typically it's our 40s. But then when you get 55, there's a plateau and people are really noticing it. 65, super noticing it. In fact, in the United States, until very recently, the age of retirement was 65. They figured at 65, you're used up, you're burnt out, and you just need to go home and sit on the porch until you expire. That was the attitude in the US. Now that's changed, and they've changed the retirement age for Americans now is usually geared around the age of 70. But that's a government thing. That's not a health thing. Okay. So we begin to see that decline sort of gradually. Then around 55, it becomes very noticeable. And then it gets to be more and more and more noticeable as we age. And the more noticeable it is, the more people say, I got to see my doctor and get a medication, or I have to take some kind of dietary supplement to help me feel better. And we need to be logical about that. We'll talk about that later. Okay. So in your 20s and 30s, and I still remember it vividly, I was a U.S. Marine back then, and I was invincible as a U.S. Marine. I could do anything. There was no physical thing I couldn't accomplish. There was nothing I couldn't do. I felt like Superman. And compared to the way I was then to the way I am now, yeah, I was Superman compared to the way I am now at the age of 72. But that's where you feel invincible. And if you think you're invincible, you're like, well, the dietary supplements, what for? Okay. And I get that. In your 40s, you begin to see the signs. 50s, now doctor visits increase. In the 60s, you're looking at chronic health problems, which gets worse and worse and worse. There's a big plateau on average that comes around 65. There's another big one, a seriously big hit on average, according to the studies, around the age of 75. And it's very interesting to me. And I will talk to you about some of the decline on here as well. How people view their environment and what they eat and what they take as they age. Very interesting observation, which we'll come back to in a moment. So in Australasia, and you see your map there, so you have about 80% of people 65 and over have at least one chronic health concern, but nearly 30% have three or more health concerns. Well, let's help them out. Let's help them feel better. Let's give them what they need. And you're going to learn from this presentation what they need and why they need it. It'll make sense to you before we're finished with this. And we see a similar trend in New Zealand and a similar trend in Singapore. And in fact, in Singapore, they're spending a lot of money per person on the 65 and older group. It's quite a burden for the government system in all three countries, but it's especially getting worse in Singapore. Now at Stanford University at their Stanford Medical School, they just released some data this year, which is very important data for us. And this is about people who are 50s and that their 50s, a lot of people see as their perfect decade, that they've reached this point where, because of what they've learned, because of what they've achieved financially, because of what they've accumulated, and their relatively low health burdens at that point, that seems to be good for them. There was a time when it was 40s, and now it's 50s. But cellular aging begins in your 20s. Now, I'm going to talk to you in a little bit more detail about cellular aging. We're going to go down the bullet points for you. So hopefully that will all make sense for everybody. But when the cellular aging starts, you don't necessarily feel it because your body, the human body, is a miracle. It's so miraculous. It compensates so well for an area of weakness or an area of decline, and the old saying, robbing Peter to pay Paul. It does such a great job at moving things around, at shifting resources, shifting logistics to keep you from knowing that you've begun to decline. But you are declining. So people in their 20s and 30s should be following the advice of this presentation. They just don't know it because they haven't felt it yet. But this information should be presented to them as well. Now, something that's come up frequently, and we get this all the time. Let's say you're in a social gathering and you meet someone and they look much younger for their age, and the common response is, oh, well, they have good genetics. Well, that's a valid question, and it's a valid thought, except it's basically not true. I mean, there is that extremely rare person who has exceptional genetics that allows them to age better. But generally speaking, the overwhelming majority of people who are aging more gracefully, it's not about genetics. It's about lifestyle and environment. I mean, I can tell you that from my own family. And my wife, she looks much younger than her age, much younger. People generally guess her at early 50s. She's 73, and no one believes it when she says she's 73. She's had to actually pull out her driver's license and show it to people and say, "See, I'm 73," because they don't believe it, and they say, "Oh, well, it's good genetics." Well, not if you meet her sisters, you won't believe that. I don't mean any offense to her sisters. I don't want to get in trouble here, but it's trust me, folks, it's not genetics. It's about lifestyle and environment, and that includes what you eat. It includes how you digest. It includes the supplements you take, which we're going to cover in some detail as we proceed. Now, I actually asked AI, which I try to avoid AI because it almost never does what you ask it to correctly. I mean, it's not there yet. But I asked AI to make me a couple of maps. This is not exactly what I wanted, but this is what we have. And let me explain to you what you're looking at right now. Now you'll see that on one side of your screen, you see that there are green hills and red hills. That's in chart A. Now that's showing you the difference between health span and lifespan. The problem with this is it doesn't, at a glance, it doesn't tell you what you need to know. But what you're looking at here is in almost every country, what we're seeing is a gap of approximately 10 years or even more, even longer, between when you stop being healthy and when you finally die. So that's the difference between the health span and lifespan. Now, some of you might glance at the world map and say, ooh, Australasia doesn't look too good. But heck, if I lived in, I don't know, one of the green countries, just pick one, maybe I'd be in good shape. Well, these are relative numbers, folks. So yes, 7 is better than 12. There's no doubt about that as you're looking at that map. But 7 is not good. So, and you look at my home country of the U.S. Oh my gosh, it's a serious 12. And Australia, same thing. New Zealand is coming in around 11, and as is Singapore. It's not good. It's not good. So you've got this big gap between when you stop being healthy, but medical science is still keeping you alive. I don't want that. You don't want that. You don't want your friends and your neighbors to have that either. You want those two to match. You want that perfect situation where your health span and your lifespan are the same number. So you feel healthy right up until the end. And that's a different talk about what happens at the end. But all right, so a lot of people will say, well, my doctor says all I have to do is eat healthy. Well, your doctor is mostly wrong. Do I want you to eat healthy? Of course I do. I talk about it all the time. And you want to make the right choices for your eating, but your diet, if you're eating exactly the same food, let's say you're 65 right now, and you're eating exactly the same foods that you ate at age 40. It's an absolute scientific fact. I hate to speak in absolutes, but here I have to say it. It's an absolute scientific fact that you will not get the same nutrition from that exact same food at age 65 that you get at age 40. You will not. And I'll show you the evidence of that as we proceed. That has to do with digestive enzymes. Now, this is shocking to a lot of people. By the age of 40, and these are studies by some of the world's leading experts. By the age of 40, you have already lost your ability to make digestive enzyme somewhere between 25 and even as high as 40%. So you may have lost as much as 40% of your body's ability to make digestive enzyme. If you don't have a digestive enzyme for the food, for the appropriate food, you need protease to break down your protein. You need lipase to break down your fat, and so on. All right, so you need these digestive enzymes. But if your body is making less of them as you age, that means that the same food is delivering less nutrition every day. Now, you think you're doing the same thing because you're eating the same food and the decline is gradual. It's slow, it's gentle at first. So you don't realize what's happened. Now, after the age of 40, according to the experts, this says that we're losing between 10 and 13% of our ability to produce digestive enzyme per decade. Now, think about this for a minute. You're down, let's say, only 25% when you're 40, but then you're down another 10% when you're 50 and another 10% when you're 60. Get the picture? So you're eating the same food, but you're not getting the same nutrition. I'm going to show you some stats that show you that even governments who have been reluctant forever to talk about deficiencies, they can't avoid talking about it anymore. It's too big of a deal. And especially if they have socialized medicine, where it's a tax burden. It's a huge tax burden on the government to have people who aren't healthy. It would be much better for the government and the taxpayers if the population was healthier for a longer period of time. That should make so much sense to everybody. All right, so what is aging? Let's look at the bullet points here, all right? Well, your cells, basic biology, everyone knows about cell division as you're growing and so on, right? Your cells divide less efficiently. The mechanisms that repair your DNA slow down and become less effective. Your mitochondria produces less energy. Protein quality declines because you're not digesting your protein and you're not getting enough protein into your body no matter what you're doing. I'm going to show you in a few moments that as you age, you need more than you did when you were younger. It can't stay the same. Now, I've had people, in fact, we look at, at population groups, and I've had people who will come to me and they started at Mannatech, let's say at the age of 40, and now they're 55, and they come to me and they say, Dr. Nugent, I want to know why the products don't work anymore. And what I tell them is the product worked exactly the way it did before. You don't work the way you used to. That's what's happening. Because of aging, you don't work as well as you used to. The product's exactly the same. The product isn't aging. It is what it is. But all the things you're seeing on the screen right now, look at that. Stem cell activity decreases. Now, it talks about not just your immune system, but about repair. And inflammation begins to increase. And if you have people in your personal group that are in the US, you can't use the word inflammation in the US. I have to say that. But here you can say it. In fact, every country on the planet, you can say it except the US. All right. Your hormone production declines. This affects energy and a whole lot of other things that you know about. Your muscle mass begins to degrade. I'll show you some stats on that in a moment. Nutrient absorption goes down because you're not digesting, you're not pulling out of your foods. Again, the food can be identical, but you are not getting the same nutrition. You're just not. Your cell-to-cell communication degrades. And that's when we get back to GRT, or glycan replenishment therapy. Because without cell-to-cell communication, nothing is going to work right in your body. And I can have people who say to me, well, Ambertose doesn't work like it used to. Yes, it does. It works exactly the same as it used to. But you don't work the way you used to. So you need to take special steps. Again, we'll continue with that. How about hormones? How will the hormones change as you age, folks? Your DHEA, take a look at this. At around the age of 25, remember I said earlier, really, I've talked a lot about 40 plus and 65 plus, but really, people starting at age 20 and forward should be hearing this information and taking the right steps now before they have problems. It, it's so sensible to do it that way. But you're going to have to talk to people about that because they're simply, if they don't feel it, they're not going to think about it. But DHEA begins to decline by about 2% per year every year, starting at the age of 25. Estrogen is declining, of course, between 45 and 55, and then there are all manner of related problems with estrogen changes. Testosterone. Uh, testosterone, men and women, by the way, both need testosterone, but women need very, very small amounts, and men need very large amounts. And estrogen is the reverse. So men do produce small amounts of estrogen, and women, of course, need much more. But now the testosterone is declining at about 1% per year, starting at the age of 30. 1% per year decline. This means a change in muscle mass. This means a change in energy. It means a change, believe it or not, in mental alertness, and it definitely means a change in libido. So this is when men start looking for the little blue pill kind of thing. Human growth hormone begins to decline at the age of 30. So again, this presentation isn't just for 65 plus. Really, in your 20s and 30s, you should be taking the right steps. Subclinical thyroid problems after the age of 50, very common. So we start to put on weight, we have lower energy, we have problems with temperature regulation in our bodies. Melatonin declines, and this affects our sleep and our sleep patterns. Now, we know as we age, our sleep patterns get worse. And part of the reason for that is that melatonin helps you to get into that pattern where you can have a good, refreshing, healthful night's sleep. And if you're making too little melatonin, you're going to have a tough time having a good night's sleep. You'll have a tough time getting to sleep, have a tough time having a good night's sleep, and you'll have a tough time maintaining your circadian rhythm. That is your daily biological rhythm in your body. And every cell of your body, by the way, has its own clock. It's just that's a different talk. And insulin sensitivity, why do we see so many people with blood sugar problems starting around the age of 40? Because insulin sensitivity is declining around the age of 40. And at the same time, we also see more blood sugar related health issues starting around the age of 40. Muscle loss, folks, this is a big deal. This is a much bigger deal than you can possibly imagine. Now, a lot of people, if you're a bodybuilder, you think about your muscles all the time. Most people probably don't think too much about their muscles, but everyone's heard about the elderly person who falls and they have a serious and perhaps life-threatening injury, or they have an injury that they can't recover from because their bones have gotten brittle or whatever the situation is. Why did they fall? They didn't fall because they were old. They fell because they've been losing muscle mass and muscle integrity, and it gets to the point where they can't maintain their balance properly anymore. This is a big deal. It's also a big deal about strength, and it's also a big deal about metabolism. Your muscles are your metabolic furnace. So, and let's do it, and I'm going to generalize here, of course, because it's not 100% always this way. But all right, so the married couple, the husband says it's too hot in the room, and the wife says it's too cold in the room. All right. That's because he has more muscle mass than she does. He's burning at a hotter rate than she is. So for her, it is colder, and for him, it is warmer. Now, as the muscle mass is going down, he begins to feel like it's cooler, but she's feeling like it's even colder than it used to be. And then there's weakness that goes along with that, just for general function. It's just not good. And 3 to as much as 8%, 8% per decade. Think about it, starting at the age of 30. I remember when I was a U.S. Marine, I had finished my 6 years of service. And when the Gulf War broke out, I went down to the recruiter to re-enlist. And the recruiter said, "We thank you for your service, sir, except you're too old." And I said, "What do you mean I'm too old? I was 36." And he said, "No, I'm sorry, the cutoff for U.S. Marines is 28 because you have to have a certain amount of strength and certain amount of power and all that." And so that was that. But I mean, that's a rule with the U.S. Marine Corps. It's 28. They won't, nothing above that. And part of the reason is because of muscle mass, because of this decline. And after the age of 60, wow, it really accelerates. By the age of 80, you can be looking at as much as 50% muscle mass loss. Now, at this point, you're in a wheelchair, you're at a walker perhaps, but probably a wheelchair, and probably with supplemental oxygen. That's not health, folks. That's not living. I want your health span and your lifespan to be the same. So sarcopenia is something that we want to avoid, and it can be avoided. But one of the reasons for the muscle mass loss, and you'll get the person who says, "Oh, it's all about exercise and activity." It's not all about that. Is exercise important? Of course it is. Being physically active is it important? Absolutely important. Is that going to replace your muscle mass? No, sorry, it's not. You have to be able to take in enough protein daily, and you have to be able to digest that protein every day. Because if you put it in your mouth but you don't digest it, you just have expensive stool, and it's not helping you. Now, we generally look at somewhere between 1.2 and 1.6 grams, but those are averages, and that is per kilogram body weight every single day. Do you eat that much protein? I bet you don't. And every day of your life, your requirements are going just a tiny bit higher because your body is declining. You're losing mass. You have to swim upstream, as it were, to attempt to stay even, let alone catch up and surpass. Can you catch up and surpass? Yes, you can. It's been done, and you can do it if you take the right steps. Well, various scientists have put together what they call the 12 hallmarks of aging. So again, we look at, what is aging anyway, right? Well, I've kind of talked about it all, so I'm not going to go through each of these bullet points, but you can see them up on the screen. But I've kind of talked about this general decline. Now, there are two things that I'll just mention briefly. Your telomere attrition. Now, we know that scientists have been using telomeres to predict your biological aging. But there's a new way to predict biological aging, which is far more accurate than telomeres, which I'm going to talk to you about in a few moments. And there are actually chromosome gaps that are created while you're aging. This, folks, is a serious, serious problem. And you have a deregulating of your ability to sense nutrients. So your body has to be able to sense something that's entered your blood, and then it has to know how to take it and put it where it needs to be. There's also a situation called senescence. Now, some scientists have referred to this as zombie cells. Now, I know that you've not heard of this before, and I promised you I would tell you things you've not heard before. So, senescent cells, what happens is at a certain age, the cell stops to function, but it doesn't die. So it's kind of like the living dead, right? It's there, but it doesn't have a function anymore. And what does it do as it's not performing the function it was designed to perform? It releases toxin into your bloodstream every day, like a decaying zombie. And I think this is why some scientists refer to senescent cells as zombie cells. Well, that's a problem as we age because that number continues to accumulate in our blood as we age. Now, everybody used to think it was nice and clean, right? You have this process where a cell reaches a certain age, it dies, and another cell, a macrophage, comes along and cleans it up, and that's very nice and clean, and it's an absolute, and everyone loves it. Except that's not the way it works all the time. Again, science marches on. There's lots of new things to worry about. The changes in your gut that occur in age, so many things. Let's talk about GRT and our hero, ambertose. GRT, glycan replenishment therapy. Here is the latest science. We now know from human study, this is important, human study, listen, animal studies tell us a lot, and I understand the reason that a lot of companies will do animal studies. The reasons are sound. And I know that some people object to that and they get pretty upset. So I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. Simply I understand why they're doing it. And I think in the end, it has helped a lot of human beings as a result. So all of you know about glycans. We've been talking about glycans for a long time here at Mannatech, and since 1995. So what you may not know is that all of the cells of your body are coated with glycans. You have little receptor sites. You might think of them as antennae. And they all have their own specialized point for different glycans. And this is why you need a multi-glycan formula rather than a single glycan formula. One glycan is not going to do the job for you. It's got to be multi-glycan or you're not going to have all the function you need. It's really that simple. And the science really tells us that without any question. Now, you'll look on the internet, a lot of people, the first thing they do, I've even had people where I'm doing live lectures, and I have to say, it not only hurts my feelings and annoys me when people are sitting in my lectures, I'll say something that they haven't heard of, They grab their phone and they Google it. It's like, put the darn phone down until I'm done with the lecture. Then you can Google all night long after that, right? But let's hear the lecture first. So there's a lot of people, they'll Google glycans and they'll see, oh, these are complex sugars, and they go, oh my God, there's sugars. Okay, there's table sugar, and then there's glycans. Now, glycans are technically sugars, but they are not simple sugars. These are polysugars. They are multiple sugars. And I've put this slide in here just to show you. And by the way, the study was done by an Australian scientist, Dr. Talitha Best. And in this study, this was a human double-blind placebo control, 73 middle-aged adults, gave them all 4 grams of ambertose complex, my favorite ambertose, and there was no change in blood sugar for even one person in the study. So our glycans do not raise blood sugar. Our glycans do not make you fat. Our glycans only provide good things for your health. It's not table sugar. They are different. So glycan replenishment therapy. All right. Now, on the internet, you'll probably see some early studies where they talk about glycan replacement therapy. Our legal department says we have to say replenishment. I'm not a legal beagle. I don't know. I don't understand why there's a difference, but anyway. So replenishment is what we are saying. All right. Same thing. Still GRT. In a study of more than 5,000 human beings, they found some really important information. And in addition to that study, I've noted other studies at the bottom of the screen in case you're interested. And what they wanted to do is find out if glycans can predict biological aging. And they found out that they definitely can. Now, as we age, we have a lot more of something called glycation. And what you want more of is glycosylation. Okay. Glycosylation is when the appropriate glycans go to the appropriate receptor site and bond to it. Okay. That's glycosylation. Glycation is more of a blocking effect, and it causes inflammation. Okay. Now, of course, the older you get, the more inflammation you have, and the more prone you are to have inflammation from virtually any activity. But all of your systems function less efficiently as you age. Now, in this same study, and then there's a collateral study I've listed also on this slide. In this same study, they talk about the fact that the biomarkers of aging could be reduced by as much as 10 years by adding glycans orally. And let me show you a chart. So this is a graph that shows you this decline. So as we age, and you're looking at this chart, you see as we age, we are making less and less and less glycans. We also have less of a pool of glycans. So part of that is because of what we've eaten. Part of that is because of how we digest. Part of that is because of how our bodies are generally functioning as we age. But just take a look at it, and you see that the shift gets pretty serious as you're aging towards the age of 70. Now, their next step of the study is, all right, we've confirmed that glycans are reducing. So every time somebody says to me, I feel great, can I stop my ambertose? No. Now, the answer is no, you may not. Because every day of your life, you're going to need glycans more today than you needed them yesterday. You're going to need them more tomorrow than you needed them today. Okay. So no, you may not stop taking your ambertose. I don't care how you feel. All right. This is about glycans specifically. Now let's look at what happens. So they add glycans orally, and the biomarkers of aging increase by 10 years. In other words, a person who is 70 now has the biomarkers of a person who is 60. Is this good? I hope you think that's good. I think it's great. Now, this was not a study that was going to go on forever where let's try it at this amount, let's try it at that amount, let's try it. That didn't happen, okay? What we know is it works. And more study is needed to find out, if we do more than 4 grams, might we get better than 10 years? I don't know yet. Not until we do a study, so I don't know. But we're going to see. But I think this is powerful. These are studies, if you want to look at these yourself and read them and see how that supports the things I've been saying. Now, I started looking at, because we've got a lot of studies on ambertose. Most of our studies are on ambertose complex, but we have a couple of studies on advanced and life, but the majority are on complex because it's our oldest formula, and so it's been around longest, and we've done the most study on it. So I started looking back through our data, and I thought, because scientists never throw away data, whatever you collect data, and you want to keep it because you don't know it may be meaningful for something you're not looking for today. So I thought, I'm going to start looking through all of our previous papers and see if I can find something that supports this argument, but specifically with ambertose, because the studies I just showed you, they don't even know ambertose exists. They were just using some glycan powder that they made up. All right, so here's ambertose, folks. This is ambertose. A 10 to 20% increase in IgG galactosylation. Now, this is good. This is talking about galactose bonding to its receptor site. And galactose is the most important glycan for fighting inflammation, key factor in aging. So let me show you this on a chart, because charts are usually better than numbers. People can look at it and go, whoa, I remember that picture. So the measurement before taking ambertose, and you see in the test group here, then after 12 weeks of taking ambertose at 4 grams a day, which is what our current label recommendation is, after only 12 weeks, guess what? Their aging biomarkers dropped by 10 years. So that 10-year number keeps coming up again. Can we do better than that? I don't know. We need another study to know. But I'm here to tell you that, yes, we know that ambertose can reduce your biomarkers of aging. That's wonderful news. Wonderful news. So GRT is perfect for Mannatech, absolutely perfect. And this is something that's trackable, and it's more accurate than telomeres. So you definitely want to do this. Each glycan plays a specific role. So anyone who says to you they've got a formula with one magic glycan in it, I say that's very nice, but it won't do the job. It just won't. You need a multi-glycan formula. That's all there is to it. You just do it. So glycan replenishment therapy, perfect for Mannatech, perfect for ambertose, perfect for Mannatech. We should all be doing it. We should all be thinking about it all the time. And we are the glycan company, folks. We are the company that pioneered a new field of science called nutritional glycobiology. No other company can say that, only us. We know more about glycans than anybody out there. And I think this is wonderful. And now I want you to see some things nutritionally. I know that I'm going to run overtime on this. I've just gotten too darn excited about this, but I am excited about this. I want us to make a difference. I want you to make a difference. I want a difference in your life. I want a difference in everybody's life that you talk to about this. We've got 100 and, well, it varies depending on which definition you use, but let's say 193 countries by the United Nations definition. That means that 75% of the countries on planet Earth now have legislation to require the addition of certain nutrients to food. Why would they require it? Because they know it's not there. They know you're not getting it. That's a big deal. In Australia, 96% of people are not eating what they're supposed to eat. 67% New Zealand, 50% in Singapore. That's an important factor to begin with. Glycans, you need 8 for cellular communication. We need to do more research to see how many more we need every day. But ambertose has 10. By the way, it's always had 10. And I always get somebody argue with me. No, it always had 10. Nobody knows more about ambertose than I do. Okay, trust me on this. This is what the surface of a cell looks like. Now here they use blue dye and they used an electron microscope because cells are pretty darn small. But on the surface of this cell, what you see is all these little antennae that I talked about. And on the antennae are glycans bonded to them. Now you're talking about hundreds of billions of glycans on the one cell that you're looking at right now. One cell, hundreds of billions. And you have 37.2 trillion cells. Do you need glycans? Yes, you do. Are you getting enough every day? No, you aren't. Do you need to take more as you age? Yes, you do. It's pretty simple. Here's immune cells. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole list of cells because it's too long, but on the first one, you get the idea. Now, that glycosylation that you just saw on that one cell, imagine that all of your immune cells, your neutrophils, your basophils, your eosinophils, all of them they need to be covered with glycans. Some immune cells only live 10 hours. Some may live as long as 3 days, but when a new one is born, guess what it needs? It needs all new glycans. So why should you take glycans every day? Ambertose every day? Because you need it constantly. And as you age, you are having less in your bloodstream. We now know that by the studies. This is confirmed. So what do we know about ambertose currently from the studies we've already done? It supports immune function, memory, and cognition, so the way your brain functions, the way you think. Okay, mood, gut health, physical performance. We've got physical performance studies as well, such as the one done by Dr. Roca in Spain. Tremendous study about performance of top athletes with glycans. Makes a difference. Okay, so look, folks. For 25 years, we've been the experts in glycans, and nobody's ever going to surpass us in that area. There are people in 43 countries that trust ambertose, and this is a product that is exclusive to Mannatech. It can't be duplicated. Even if someone could somehow magically duplicate the formula, they could never duplicate our research that we've already completed. That can't be redone. It can't be duplicated, but our formula can't be duplicated. So these are all of the things that we know by scientific study, again, confirming this: cellular communication, cognitive function, memory improvement, and as you age, cognitive function, memory improvement, improved concentration, improved attentiveness, improved mood, decreased irritability, all these brain function related things, they're going to be really important. And we have 7 brain studies. The majority of companies that advertise brain support products have no studies at all. We have 7. We know what ambertose does. It's amazing stuff. Plus immune function, of course, and gut health. And we have earned patents in 30 countries with ambertose, and we've earned more than 150 patents overall. Still have patents that are valid. Patents always expire in 12 years, or 20 years, I'm sorry. Patents do expire, but you have to earn the patent first. That says something about your science. It's real simple. 1 scoop twice a day and 250 ml of fluid. Pick your fluid. Well, I mean, don't put it in scotch or something, right? But pick your fluid. I put mine in my coffee every morning, and I can't taste it in my coffee, and it's great. And you talk about healthy coffee. Whoa, that's some healthy coffee. And make sure you get your vitamins, of course, as well with Catalyst. Very, very important. Glycans actually need certain vitamins and certain minerals to function, and that's why I always say ambertose catalyst, ambertose catalyst. Make sure you're doing the two together to get maximum effect of the ambertose. Okay. So your 5 pillars of healthy aging, there they are. And look at one of them, targeted supplementation. A few years ago, when the science was not available, the science that I've just showed you this morning, that science was not available, people wouldn't have said that. But now we know that at certain ages, you are declining in your ability to digest nutrition from your food, and you have an increase for certain new needs that you didn't have when you were 5 years and 10 years younger. So targeted supplementation is now something that every intelligent person wants to do. If you don't do targeted supplementation every day, you're just plain foolish because you're not going to have much of a health span. You may have a lifespan, but you're not going to have much of a health span. Okay. So, with this in mind, the best investment that you can make is in your own health. And the time to start on it is right now, not next week, not if you're a person watching this right now and you say, well, I'm only 35, so I'm not interested. No, start now. This is important. Really, the declines we see even in the 20s, steps are simple, simple steps. Recognize depletion. I hope that what I've just shared with you helps you know that human study recognizes the depletion as we age. It's real. They tested more than 5,000 human beings. This is solid science. This is not like somebody did a random thing on 10 people in their garage, right? This is solid science, more than 5,000 people. That's a huge study. We know from the study that you can replenish your glycan supply. So you replenish it with Ambritose, the hero product. There is no glycan product like Ambritose anywhere on planet Earth. That's what you want to do. So keep this in mind. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. So anyone who says they can put this off, no, no, no. Today is the time you start. References, references. I always give you these. And of course, our 4 products that I want to recommend for healthy aging. By the way, omega-3 is a good one to add in this as well, but I just want you to look at these. So with this in mind, I have gone over time, 4 minutes, and I'm going to turn this back over to my very dear friend and your fantastic General Manager of Australasia, Sinead.
Wow. Wow, that was incredible. And as I alluded to earlier, I'd seen the slides in all its formats and before and after the AI attempt. And I knew this morning's call is going to be good. So Dr. Nugent, thank you so much. That was absolutely incredible. And we are very, very thankful. And I can see that the chat is going off, which is always a good sign.